I want to tell you, I'm really pleased the way the lesson's going. I'm really encouraged when people come up to me afterwards and say, can you give me that verse or that book that you got that out of? And that's really encouraging because that means that, remember at the very beginning of this 4 weeks ago, we were talking about what is milk and what is meat. And now you're moving into the meat when you're asking to look at these verses and studying these verses and look at what they mean. It's a great thing. I'm always dumbfounded by similarities. Like last week, Patrick had a blue shirt on and I had a blue shirt. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. And then during his first sermon at the 9 o'clock hour, he talked about reputation and character. Well, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And I was going to wear my Boise State shirt.
Oh.
2 words that Georgia football fans do not like to hear. If you know anything about college football, you'll know why. But I knew you wouldn't be wearing yours, so I decided not to wear them. So I'm going to go through 2 slides and finish vigilant. And then we're going to stop. 2 Corinthians 11, 14, and 15. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Again, test these things. Find out what is good and what is not good. You have to be careful. The Bible itself says that Satan himself can transform himself into an angel of light. What you perceive to be good, to be evil. Remember the Hitler sayings that I put up there. 2 Peter 2:1. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privy shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. Now that's going to be the end of vigil. It's still at work.
Turned on.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, Herman. So we're going to stop here. Vigilant was one of the longer lessons that I felt needed to be explained because there was so much about being vigilant against evil. But this is going to be the end of this requirement as an elder. And before I move on to something else, to the next requirement, I wanted to give you something I had been studying for a while. Something that just kind of, it's amazing how when you read the Bible, you can read things and you can miss things. And then there's other things that are buried deep in the Bible. And if you really study them, it's amazing how it comes to light. And this is something I've been doing for a while. And I want to share it with you, and it ties in, and I'm going to tie it into eldership at the end of this. I hope we can get through it. And like I said, I did work the police department last night. It's been a pretty tough weekend since Friday. I've worked 2 nights tonight. I got to go get about 5 hours of sleep and going to work another 12 hours. And it's amazing the things that I see. Some of the things I've seen so far this weekend is I worked an accident. A man broke his back. It's amazing what a vehicle will do to the human body. A husband and wife got into an argument. She threw a phone at him, and she's in jail. A young 14-year-old girl who at first you think's just being bratty and being rebellious decides to cut herself and try to commit suicide. And then you wonder what's going on with the 14-year-old. Why would she do that? And I always, if you really talk to me on a personal level, I always will tell you, I've seen things that no man should ever have to see. I've seen more death by age of 21 than most people see in their lifetime. And maybe there's a reason for that. I'm not sure why. But I always wondered why I've saw so much death and so much horrible things. Maybe it's just because I chose to be in professions that did this. But the interesting thing is Tom handed me a book this morning, Similarities. Tom handed me a book this morning, which he usually does. He gives me a book a week. And the name of this book is Some Things That Jesus Saw. It was kind of interesting that I was going to tell you about this, and then he gave me this book, Similarities. I will read it. So, to our lesson today, if you would, if you have your Bibles with you, turn to Romans chapter 16, verses 17. Now, I'm going to go through this. I've got about 3 pages of verses, and I'm going to go through them, and then we'll talk about them at the end. And this is something, remember at the beginning of this lesson, I said, well, when God tells you something in the Bible, or you read something in the Bible, it's important. If it's repeated in the Bible, it must be really important. Okay? So let's start off with Romans chapter 16, verses 17. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which ye learned, and avoid them. Now I'll go slow. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 9 through 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 9 through 13. I wrote unto you in an epistle not to company with fornicators, yet not altogether with the fornicators of this world, or with the covetous, or extortioners, or with idolaters, for them must ye needs to go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company if any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, a covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, with such, and know not to eat. For what here I to do to judge them also that are without? Do not ye judge them that are within? But them that are without God judgeth. Therefore put away from among yourself that wicked person. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Let's go to 2 Corinthians. Just bear with me. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 14 through 17. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 14 through 17. Verse 14, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communication hath light with darkness? Verse 15, and what concord hath Christ with Belial, who is the devil? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? 16, and what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For you are the living temple of God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk with them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Verse 17, wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean things, and I will receive you. Let's go to the book of Ephesians, chapter 5. Ephesians 5, and we're going to read from verse 7 and 11. Ephesians, chapter 5, 7 and 11. Verse 7, be ye not therefore partakers with him. Verse 11, and have no fellowship with the unfaithful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Let's go to the book of Colossians, chapter 2, verses 20 and 21. Colossians chapter 2, verses 20 and 21. Wherefore, if ye be dead with Christ from the rudiments of the world, why, as through living in the world, are ye subject to ordinances? Verse 21, touch not, taste not, handle not. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 21 and 22. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 21 and 22. Verse 21, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Verse 22, abstain from all appearance of evil. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 6 and 14. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 6 and 14. Verse 6, now we command you, brethren, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that ye withdraw yourself from every brother that walketh disorderly among you. Verse 14, and if any man obey not our words by epistle, note that man, and have no company with him, that he may be ashamed. And then finally, if you would, bear with me, 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 22. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 22. Lay hands suddenly on no man, neither be a partaker of other men's sin. Keep thyself pure. That must be really important, because every single one of those books, chapters, and verse all sounded like the same to me. Paul was trying to tell us something. I know it is a broad spectrum that can apply to each and every one of us. I want to apply this to the elders, because to be an elder, you have to be of a higher standard. You remember I spoke about 2 weeks ago about how people can say things to us as police officers and we can't charge them like they would just say to a normal person, because we're held to a higher standard and the judges will not honor our warrants, so we just have to let them call us names and stuff. That's okay. But elders are the same way. They are a special person and they are held to a higher standard. So they have to be careful what they partake in. Now, I would like to get some feedback from each and every one of you, if you would, on the books that we just read, the chapters and the verses. Again, for me, it's very important. This is not hidden. Paul just keeps pounding this and pounding this and pounding this for some reason. I think it's very important that I have found nowhere else in the New Testament, other than spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, that something is repeated more than to be careful what you associate with. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we have these big Fortune 500, Fortune 250 companies in America that are trying to set the moral standard for us or the religious standard for us. I'm not going to do that. That's up to each and every one of you. That's growing into the meat from the milk. You have to pray about what you put before your eyes, what you watch on TV, what you listen to, the type of music you listen to, the type of places you go to. I'm going to let you decide that. But for elders, they have to be a step above that. They have to be careful what they put before their eyes, because there's always people out there that will judge you. Non-Christians will look at you as a Christian and see what you're like. Do they really talk the talk, or did they just not walk the walk? You wanted to say something?
You want me to?
Sure.
You could have mentioned Titus too, where Paul told Titus there as an evangelist to put himself forth as a pattern. And I think that's basically what you're saying here, that elders, you say that the standard is higher for them. I don't know if that's an accurate way of saying it, but they have to be, as elders, using that standard carefully, because they're the pace setters, if you will. They're the leaders. They're in front, and if they're not living it, then why would they expect anyone else in the body to do it? But we have to be careful how we associate with other people. It kind of puts me in a personal bind here mentally, because there's a part of me that says we need to do more to reach out to people, because we're not reaching as many people as I believe we should. And part of that may be we've taken that siege mentality, where we're afraid of the world and what the world may do to us and how the world may impact us, because that is as you pointed out, legitimate and very serious concern. But if we take that to the extreme and we build walls around ourselves and have no interaction with or communication with or involvement with the world, there won't be very little value to them. They won't know us. They won't be influenced by us. We have to be able to carry it even a step further, and I think open dialogue with people, from other religious backgrounds, different viewpoints of view. We need to be willing to sit down and discuss with them, why do you believe what you believe, and where did you form your beliefs, and maybe challenge them, let them challenge us, to see if we can't refine our own thinking a little better. But it's kind of a balancing act we have to take, where we can't let the world overrun us. At the same time, we have to be on the offensive and carry the gospel to the world. It's a difficult balancing act, but it's a valid point to make.
It is, and before I gave this lesson plan, I might have said this. If it sounds a little redundant or I'm repeating myself, that's okay. I'm almost 60 years old, so I can do that now. I'm a senior citizen. I'm over 55. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, you were mentioning about a police officer having a higher standard. There's some professions that have higher standards. And I think that if you think, as a Christian first, everything else will follow. And just like, ironically, I was trying to catch up on videos that, we as educators have to watch during our pre-planning, and I know those that are educators know, code of conduct, things like that. Be careful on social media, things like that. But, again, there's teachers that I feel are one person at work and then a different person after work. And so that's where those kind of people get in trouble. But if you're the same person and if you're a Christian, that's it. And you're all set. But kind of going on what Michael said, in our profession, we see a lot of things that, we are, I guess, I feel like held to a higher standard, but if you are that example, and if you, like, there's lots of students that I'm involved with that Michael was also involved with too, due to mental health reasons, things like that. And, I feel like, I'm in my profession to help you. Those of you that know me pretty well know that, I was not planning to be a teacher, but because of our son Joshua having autism, that's the route I went. And so we always feel like, that's why God gave me this, so we can help other people and be good examples and be good Christians.
That's true, and I do think there's all kind of professions and that have that, and educators are one of them. We subject our children, if we can't afford to send them to a Christian school, to the public school system. Well, we don't know who's teaching them and what they're teaching in the room. We hear it every day on the news about how teachers at this state or something, they're teaching this, or they started this lesson plan on something, which is out of even the realm of what the lesson plans are for that school district. I think elders are a real higher standard. Paul went as far as to describe requirements for them. So to me, that is a higher standard. Yes, sir.
I read an interesting article about a baseball coach. He gave a speech and he showed up with a home plate hanging off of his
And that's funny you say that because again, I gave this presentation to the elders before. Out of respect to them, I wanted them to look at it and see my presentation because I'm actually giving a presentation about them. So it's a little humiliating, but I did widen that plate a little bit, and they let me come back in a little bit. So, but that's the respect that you have to have for elders, that they run their local church. That's their position. That's what they do, and I honor that. So, but I wanted to give you some idea to compare what Paul was saying about being partakers in different things and associating with different things. And one of the things that I talked about, especially with Patrick, was, you know, the older I get, the more withdrawn from the world I want to be. I'm just, whether I'm right or wrong about how I feel about that, it's just I want to withdraw from the world because the world is evil to me. There's so much evil out there, and there's so many things that I don't want to be associated with. You know, some of the coworkers I work with, it's just like, can I just be like Forrest Gump and mow grass the rest of my life? I don't have to listen to anyone, you know? And Patrick and I really talked about that a little bit, and he shed some new light, which kind of broadened my basin a little bit, you know, because I guess I was being selfish because I just wanted to live with Christians. I didn't want to live with non-Christians. But you can't do that. You have to go out into the world, and you have to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's one thing that I was just blinded by. I didn't look at that side of it. I just looked at my selfish side and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a part of this no more. Yes?
We have to be a light for those that, you know, have fallen away or have never heard of God. So if we isolate ourselves from the world, you know, we take somebody's hope away from them.
Yeah, I talked to early this morning, about 4 o'clock this morning, I was at a local fast food restaurant trying to drink some coffee to stay awake. And I was talking to one of the people there, and the young girl that was having some difficulty at home, that was cutting her wrist, I explained to her, I said, you know, one of the things I think that could help in that family is if we could get her into a church, you know, and she has no, and I'm really not going to get into her background, but she has no male role model, she has no father, she's never been raised in a church, she has no association with the church, the mother doesn't go to church. And I was thinking it would be great to get her in because, you know, we could give her pills and medication to try to help her mindset. But maybe if we gave her the Bible, that would help out. And that's one of the things that I said to her, and her response to me was, well, I was raised in the church and look at me. You know, and I didn't know how to respond to that, you know. I didn't really know how to respond to that. Sometimes people say it maybe to engage me, to try to say, look, well, maybe you're not in the right church, or maybe you're not, maybe you heard of God, but you know God, but you don't know Christ. And there's a lot of people like that don't know Christ. They know God. They know all about God. They just don't know Jesus.
Those verses that we just read together. I appreciate as an elder, you're focusing and bringing it closer to what an elder is. But those verses pertain to what a Christian is.
Yes.
And how we're supposed to act as Christians. You know? And just like Teresa said, we have to be a light. Because the world is nothing but darkness. And if we, as individuals, don't put off our light to show people, then we're stagnant Christians. We're not doing what God wants us to do. So in that aspect, where you're stagnant, or we're just rebelling, you know. And both are the same. There's no difference. If you're stagnant, you're rebelling too, you know. You're just like that leaf that's thrown in the water. The stream's going to send you where it think when we study one of the greatest sermons ever given by Jesus, Sermon on the Mount, when he talks about the two roads, you know, that one's difficult. And the reason it's so difficult is because the world is darkness, you know. And if we don't give a light out, then guess what? We're going to start giving darkness out. And that makes us no different than how the devil treats people in this world. And he's after us because we are the light of the world. And we're supposed to be giving a light off that people can see. So he's going to do everything possible that he can to afflict pain, afflict being uncomfortable around different certain things, because if he can do that and get us to fall to his standard rather than God's standard, then he wins what we're in. You know, he wins our soul, and that's what he's after. But he's after everybody's soul. The problem is, because of the world the way it is, he's already got a lot of people's souls. You know, that's the difference between us and them, is because we're commanded to fight for that. We're commanded to fight for our soul so that we can get to heaven.
And you're right, Herman. And some people think that Satan holds the keys to heaven and hell, to death. I got news for you. Satan don't hold no keys, because if he did, we all wouldn't be here. He wouldn't know, none of us here. But I guess my point is, you're correct in that Paul was saying to all Christians, this is the format. I wanted to take it a step higher for
And I understand that.
for the elders, because even for me, there are certain, and it's just me, and conscience is used in the Bible. Conscience, okay? I believe your conscience. I could be wrong. If you pray about something and your conscience tells you not to do it, you best not do it, because when you do that, you're without faith, and when you're without faith, you're in sin. I think Paul actually said something similar to that in Romans. But I wanted to step up and say, even for me, there are things that I will not cross the line. I will not do business with this corporation at all. If you're going to try and influence people to a moral code, and you're in the business of being a business, and that's what you should be in business for, I know that's a lot of business words. But if you're in the business of being a business, if you have a 7-Eleven, and you're in the business of that, why don't you just make it a 7-Eleven and run the store?
Amen.
Don't sit outside and start telling me about trash that I don't want to hear. And sometimes, I know for me, if I was an elder, I would try to try that higher standard, because I know people are going to look at me. And, you know, I think Stacy and I have been coming here now for about 11, 12, maybe 13 years. We've been coming here a long time. And we've been in other churches where they do different things. But I always hold a standard. I won't change just by going to another church. That's my standard. So when I came and to that other church and I asked an elder about something, he didn't give me an answer. He didn't give me an answer to my question. And I was thinking, well, I wonder why he didn't give me an answer to that question, you know? And maybe he just didn't know the answer to it. I don't know. He didn't say. But I always hold myself to that standard, no matter if I'm at this church or I went to another Church of Christ. I'm always going to do that. So, yes, ma'am, you had a...
Going back to the higher standard comment, I mean, are all of these things listed in Titus 1 things that everyone should be striving for? Absolutely. Not being quarrelsome, being hospitable, being self-controlled, all of these things are things that every Christian should be striving for. But the fact that they're mentioned specifically to the elders says to me no man in any eldership is going to be perfect. I mean, God made us with flaws, and it's going to take work, it's going to take effort for anybody, elder or not, to reach these characteristics or have these characteristics. for a Christian sitting in the pew listening to the lesson.
Yes, and again, because Paul specifically addressed the qualifications of an elder in 3 separate books, must be important. Must be important. He's repeating himself. So there has to be something to it. Yes, ma'am?
Well, I agree with what she's saying, and like, if, as Christians, everyday Christians, the friends and the family ought to be able to, like when it's talking about don't do this with this person and don't involve yourself in the sins of the world. The people that you surround yourself with or that you have to be around, they need to be able to know by your actions and your speech and the way that you conduct yourself that you're a Christian, so that they are less likely to do those things around you. I mean, you need to, eject that personification. Well, the same thing is true in the church. As members of this church, we need to be able to look at our elders, and they have projected the standard by which they are trying to teach us to live. They have to be able to walk that walk.
And it's not a standard that's out of reach for any of us. I don't want to embarrass him. I only wish I had the memory that Bob has to memorize verses. I've tried. I know a lot of verses. I don't know the complete chapter. He can recite chapters. And it's a standard that's not set, but you inspire me to try and memorize those, is what you really do. You inspire me to do that. And that's the higher standard too that I'm also talking about. And not every elder can do that. I would say there's a lot of elders that can't do that. Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry, but I'm having technical difficulties with my hearing aid today, and I'm not hearing much of what you're saying. But I appreciate
Could you put your microphone closer to your mouth?
How's that? A little better? Okay.
some of it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I didn't hear you well, but I appreciate you saying what you said.
I also wear hearing aids, but I left mine out so I wouldn't hear any feedback. So. I do wear hearing aids.
I'm going to try to get them fixed tomorrow.
I do. Anyone else before we close? This was something that I want to share with you. Like I said, it was something that Paul repeatedly said in these books. And I knew it was important, but I also wanted to apply it to elders. And before we go on from vigilant, we're going to go into the next requirements. I wanted to just give this to you, let you pray about it, and it may come to you that these are standards that apply to you as well, not just the elders. Okay? Well,
Let me also add to that.
okay.
This eldership needs your prayers. Because just as you say, we try to hold ourselves to a higher standard because we know the responsibility we have.
Mhm.
But I'm still a man just like you are, just like every other man that's in here.
Mhm.
Temptations are sometimes even more difficult because of the standard that's up yourself to.
Yeah.
And so I know both of us appreciate prayers.
Oh, absolutely. We got the best eldership that you could have, period, point blank.
I heard
Hands
one
down.
of our elders was driving a tank yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
It was my birthday, my 60th birthday. My wife went crazy and said, I am going to put you in a tank. And she took me and went into, boy, I tell you what.
Well, happy belated birthday. Okay, well, it's almost quarter till. Thank you very much. And next week we will continue and start with the next requirement. And I think we probably could finish this up. I'm hoping to try and change shifts a little bit more. And so we'll try and finish this up, I think, in 2 weeks, maybe 3. So we'll see. Thank you very much.